like a key component of getting in there and kind of putting in place, you know, when it's going to be suitable for you to have your appropriate meals throughout the day. So I think most people go into the day, even if they know they've got like good food in the house, like if you have no concept of when you're going to be consuming that food, you know, whether that is 2 meals a day, whether that is 3 meals, whether you're having your first meal at 6 a.m. or, you know, 11 a.m., it's creating that structure and knowing when those meal timings are going to be would be step number one prior to then discussing what you're going to be consuming within those specific meals.
And how important is keeping the traditional South Asian food in the diet for consistency?
I think it's super important. Like, I think it's important based on the fact that I think there's those misconceptions of like it's literally impossible to have it in and to get results or to lose weight just based off of previous experiences where they've kind of been pushed down the sort of the classic route of, you know, just the same foods, the same protein sources, and being taken away from the kind of the foods that they enjoy the most. And, you know, even going back to what Tom was saying earlier on in terms of just like the understanding of portion control, like half the time it's not necessarily the foods that you're consuming which is the bad thing, or the foods that your mum or your mother-in-law is cooking for you. It's just the quantities at which you're cooking at, like, or you're consuming them at. And, you know, if you can understand how the one reason why you've failed so many times before is because you've always been looking forward to going back to those foods and you still don't know how to manage those food sources. So by including them in, understanding the food, like the portion size element of it, is just going to make the journey way more enjoyable, which means that you're going to be able to do it for long enough to actually, you know, get to the end result that you want.
Yeah. And per gram, the South Asian food is not heavy. Like, it will have some things in there like ghee, which will have higher calories, or the butter. But if you took 150 grams of Italian food, or you took 150 grams of Mexican food, you took 150 grams, maybe not sushi because that's probably very lean, but like if you take the bacon butties, British bacon butties, baked beans on toast, per gram, 150 grams, they're not going to be that much more calories than other traditional foods. It's always represented in the quantity in which it's consumed.
Yeah.
That does wrap up in the enjoyment piece and the philosophies that people have, and eat more until you're fat. But it's not heavy. It's just that you like a lot of it.
Yeah, there's always
and it's easy to eat a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it's in the culture. It's food on the table. Like,
finish it.
Finish it.
I go to my mum and dad's on Christmas Day. Let's say, for example, I will get a plate given to me with food on, and that'll be it.
That's one plate rule, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the 1 plate rule.
Whereas 7 Yorkshire puddings.
Yeah.
1 plate rule.
Eiffel Tower.
Whereas South Asian, you go to a restaurant, you go to family members, food's getting cooked for a lot of people. It's getting portioned out on the table for you to help yourselves in. And I think sticking to that 1 plate rule of being like, okay, well, I really, really want that, go for it then. But only have one portion, or put it on your plate. Put whatever you want on that plate, because as you say, gram for gram, it's not actually that calorific. It's the volume. So if you have plates and plates and plates of all this food, well, that's where the issues lie. If you have one plate, you're getting involved. Of course, you don't want to be coming away from the South Asian saying to your mother-in-law, don't fancy that, I've got something that I've bought. That's not going to work. That's not realistic. So you're still getting involved. And you're still choosing food that you want, because let's face it, we are there to have a good time, we are there to enjoy food. Portion control.
Can I ask a question that I generally don't know the answer to? Have you ever seen anybody that has a really big, high resistance to doing the 1 plate rule, and has this big psychological barrier to having less than 2 plates, or not doing what everyone else is doing? Have you ever seen those type of people ever stay or get in shape?
It's an interesting question. I mean, to be fair, I think I've never had pushback from utilising the 1 plate rule. I think it's, like I said, it's less so about, but I want to eat as much as possible. I just want to be able to be given the choice to be able to have, you know, certain foods. So I think like the 1 plate rule, yeah, it's never had any pushback. It's always been, you know, well and truly received. And
I've had people trying to bend the rules and say 1 plate per course.
Yeah.
That's a classic. Well, I did 1 plate for the starters, 1 plate for the mains, and 1 plate for the desserts.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
I was just curious because I've had people be resistant to the portions out of 1 plate, and I've never seen anybody with that resistance ever really make long-term change. Because if they're resistant to having ones of things or a portion of things, and their only association with the positive is that they have it like they used to have it, but they used to have it when they were 110 kilos. That's a large amount of food. There always seems to be this trade-off psychologically if they can't get around the 1 plate rule, where it's like, this is your mid-ground. This is your this is as good as it's gonna get for fat loss and for South Asian food to have it together. I just was curious because I've never really seen it not work in terms of the barrier of people only wanting 1 plate or more than 1 plate. Sorry.
How much enjoyment do people get from having more than 1 plate?
Immensely. That would be the parameter, right? And one of the biggest things that I've dealt with in the last 5-6 years is the level of feeling that people chase from food. So it's like most of my clients who speak to, I go to their house or they go to Kenya or whatever. Their meal is enough when they're satisfactory full, which is for everybody else is stuffed. When their belly is full, and that becomes more like their gauge of the meal. So I used to have that thing, because when I didn't know about the cultural dynamics, I was like, 1 plate's enough, you're fine. But when every meal that they've had for God knows how many years with family cooking for them, eat, every meal has been this reconfirmation of this is what a meal is. Feeling stuffed is a meal, versus then when you get that 1 plate, you're almost missing a leg. Don't know what you feel about that, but
Yeah. I
yeah, he's going deep back to childhood.
yeah, that took me way back.
Still there?
Oh god.
Stop living in the past, bro.
Yeah. Oh man.
Come back.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't know. I keep going with my clients. One thing that I try to get them to practice over and over again is this broccoli test of asking yourself, would you eat a raw piece of broccoli? So after that 1 plate, if you do that test to really kind of differentiate between, am I actually physically hungry right now, or is there something else happening here? Is there some kind of compulsion or some stress or anxiety, or I just want to fit in with everyone around me, to just boil it down to, are you actually hungry? I think sometimes it's hard to remember to do that, but the more and more I just try to reiterate this, because so much of it is really trying to differentiate between physically being hungry and this other kind of emotional component of our nutrition. So I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts on that, but I think that's been something that I've been really working a lot on with my clients, and to varying degrees of success, because I think it's hard to remember in those moments to be what was that broccoli thing again? Yeah. So
to tie it into this time of year, what are you going to do about the scenario of, obviously now is sweet treats, biscuits, tins of quality street heroes comes to the new year and they're still around. So is it option A that we just they're integrated into people's nutrition and food as they go, or I have to eat it all to clear it out the house, because obviously you can't have any waste. They're still there. You got to get rid of them.
Blasphemy if you waste food.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I remember the first time I had to practice it because I knew it was a problem for me when I was back at home. I was I could never waste food.
Just buy food and chucking it.
No, I practiced it by buying some food, having one of it. I think it was chocolate caramel rice cake, so top quality taste, good shit. And I was shit, Marks and Spencer's one. And I was I need to, in this meal, I need to throw that away because I have the inability to do so. I would do anything other than to throw it away. I'd give it to a homeless person, I'd give it to my mum, I'd leave it back in the cupboard, but I'd always come back around and I'd be the fucker eating it. you know. So I was like, I need to practice this. So I remember going over to the bin, and I remember it was like one of these moments where I was like an addict. I was like, open the bin, click it up, and I was like this over the top of the bin.
There's a homeless guy standing there like,
Yeah.
no, I can't give it to you.
Not the Christ game. So I was like that over the bin in the house. I was like, and I threw it away. And I remember it being like one of the most challenging things to do, because it challenged so many beliefs that I didn't even know were a choice of mine from the way I grew up. And I think a lot of people can't chuck away food or even like be okay with it. And when you challenge it, I don't know if you've ever been down that path of having that struggle, but I was like, what actually happens to me if I give away a rice cake? Not what happens to everybody else or whatever. I paid for it. I've got the reward, which is for me to be less hungry. But what actually happens if I throw this away? And that's when things start opening up instead of like, well, I got told about this, or this is what I believe, or this is what I feel is right. And they're often things from the emotional side of things that need to be challenged. Because like you said, the beliefs that we have are gained from the people around us, not what we choose. We don't choose any of our beliefs. It's always from external in. I don't know where that caveat was, but like, you know, blasphemy and food, but like caveat on that side of things. It's just challenging that belief system is probably going to save you a lot of calories. It's going to save you a lot of heartache in terms of regaining your weight back, and then it's going to give you more control, autonomy in any situation that you ever get in present. I remember another caveat is that I had a lady called Beth who for Easter, her boyfriend at the time got her this like big hamper, you know, the Easter egg hampers with all of these little bits and bobs, Terry's chocolate orange this, and boom boom boom, got a top quality tier selection box. Must be about 60-70 quid probably.
Dashed it.
No, she didn't actually. I'm practicing it with the 70 quid and he's like, oh, why did you do that? So she was panicking to me and being like, oh my god, I've just been given this, I don't know what to do with it, boom 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 boom. Well, and this is what I tell clients with the celebrations and heroes and stuff, is like, not many people, they panic in those scenarios and think they have to eat it all then, but have they actually ever looked at the sell-by date on these motherfuckers? So I looked at the stuff, so she sent it over to me, I was like, have you looked at the sell-by dates of this Terry chocolate orange? It's whatever, March, April time, whatever Easter is, November. It was like, if you look at, have you had all of that chocolate, which is about 60 quid's worth of food, if you could chunk that up every single day or every single week, you could have that in your food every single day. But people don't, there's one more logical step under, I've got food, it's a priority. But if it has an expiration date, it's not a priority.
I'm still eating that after expiration.
Yeah. Yeah, so.
It feels like you're being consistent, like I think that's the thought process as well, like you're being consistently unhealthy. Like if you were to nail that type of quality streak now and get rid of it, would feel better relative to having a couple of chocolates a day every day, although it's still going to, you know, contribute or take away from your results, but it's just more of like the clearing out, getting it done is definitely like a strong sort of, I guess, habit or mindset.
And just one off that is like normally what happens is like from my clients, they would nail the celebrations tin, and then one of their family members 3 days later would bring theirs over because they didn't want to eat it, so they bring theirs over, and now you're stuck with another celebrations tin, and now you're going to do the same thing because you haven't done what they're doing to you.
You should have done that.
Yeah, you should have done your hard.
Celebrations, it's got lint balls in it, and it's got a whole mixture of goodness.
Oh,
now
yeah,
what are you
that's
going
the
to do? You're
good
not going to
stuff.
throw away lint balls.
No, absolutely not.
We also got, like, going back to that tradition thing, right? We so my family, we have my cousin. There was always like one cousin who, or family member, and it might even be you, who's got a high BMI, right? So he's got a high BMI, and he's considered the eater, right? Of that's the identity. And growing up, that was always, you know, the family are cheering them on to eat. You know, like, oh, you got to eat this, and the guy eats loads of food and has like 3 or 4 plates of food, and like, yeah, well done, man.
Hercules.
Like, you know what I mean? He's a gold star kind of thing. And that becomes your identity growing up, right? Of, look, I'm the eater, you know, I have to finish all this food, and, you know, I get cheered on, and it's a great thing that I'm eating all this food. And some people struggle to let go of that as well. And that becomes, you know, their whole identity, and that's the way that they grow up. And, you know, breaking away from that then also becomes very difficult, just like you throwing away, you know, that Rice Krispie or whatever it was. And I think that's something that can be extremely challenging for some people. And yeah, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts.
I
around
went through
this.
that massively. So like after the during the binge eating days, when it first started, there was like obviously like self inner turmoil and going on diets and coming off diets. But during that process of yo-yoing, on the intake part, which was the best part, I'd go to restaurants and I'd be with other people and oh fucking hell, you're smashing that, you've done a great photo shoot, or you did this, that and the other. Fucking hell, you can really chow down food. I'm like, yeah, I can chow down some food. And then every single time I go to a restaurant, I'd try and pick the biggest thing on the menu. Or there'd always be a pat on the back about, oh, hey, packing away a lot of food for sure.
10,000 calorie challenge.
Yeah, literally. So many times you justify that. But, like, I would always create this identity that I was a big eater for my size, or I could pack away a lot of food, or, like, I was going to pick the biggest thing on the menu and I was going to clean it out and I could eat it fast. You'd look for challenges. I don't know if you ever did that after, like, you'd look for the challenges on the menu and you'd go to these different places. There was one in, I was doing work experience at a college near you, actually. I forgot which college, the one that does all the Tottenham coaching. Don't know. Yeah, something. Ricelip or something like that. I don't know. But Southgate. Southgate College, that was it. Anyway, so they've got a place called Sydney's next to it. It's gone out of business now. But like,
Did you stop going? You stopped going. That's why.
Yeah. So I'd go to this place and I'd walk past it every day, and they got a challenge on the window. I just remember going in and seeing this challenge, and it was like 8 patties, and then 1.5 pounds of curly fries. And I was like, that was my last hurrah moment where I went in and I didn't finish it because it was disgusting.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not doing that again because everyone else is cheering me on, but I actually feel very sick. And then I had to go and work afterwards. I was like shitting for days after that. But I really had to move away from that identity of like, that was me around the dinner table, everyone looking for me to do that. So it got to a point where I had to choose the opposite. I identified that I didn't want to be the big eater anymore because the big eater also has the biggest belly. Or the big drinker in that scenario. You could be a drinker, or you could be that person that is the chosen son and smashes down 7 samosas or whatever it is, the one son that gets the priority.
The one with a high BMI.
Yeah. And basically I had to choose the opposite. So I went to a restaurant and I couldn't choose a salad. That was the biggest blasphemy ever. If I'm going to a restaurant, I'm not picking green leaves. And then I had to do the opposite. So instead of going for the biggest thing on the menu, I'd go for something that was a normal meal that I would normally have: steak, sweet potato, or even a burger and chips, but just not the biggest burger and chips. And I had to break that step by step. Every restaurant that I went to, rewiring old patterns. The same restaurants I used to go to before and eat these big fuckers, I'd have to go and pick the small thing, and it felt weird. It felt like I was missing out because I wasn't having that big kick with
not succeeding.
Yeah, that's like that used to be me over there on that big challenge on that side of the thing, and now I've chosen normalcy and not an exciting life. But I had to go through that of feeling a bit like down here as opposed to up here in social scenarios, because that was the right move for the long term, because all it would do is mean that I was yo-yoing all of the time. So yeah, I completely resonate from like a big eater perspective.
What were some of the processes or thoughts that helped you get to that point? Like how did you get that flip the switch?
That's it. I think, do you know what? The most important thing for me was I saw other people that were my friends going to a dinner table and doing the opposite and not creating that as a normalcy. So like I'd be around loads of friends at university who do the same things as me, and then when I became around fitness people, they were looking at me like a fucking weirdo. I was like, especially if who talk about my ex-boss, he's looking at me dead across. He's like, "Why are you picking that?" And because he was my coach at the time to do this shoot, like, why would you pick that? And he's sitting there eating every grain of rice, and like taking 20, 30 minutes to eat his meal, and I'm like, well, that looks not like I'm doing. And it was that immediate feedback where I saw someone else do something that I wanted to internally do because I knew that what I was doing wasn't the right thing. So I just copied him, and I mirrored what he did, got into the pattern of what he's doing, and then started structuring it that way. So I think one thing was like the feedback of the people you're around changes your perception of whether it's good or bad. Because if you're around a bunch of coke addicts and you're sniffing lines with them, great. But if you're sitting around people that are in remission and they don't touch coke at all, and you're the only one racking up lines, you look like a bit of an idiot. So it's having that perception change of maybe you might have all your friends and family, like I did, were all big eaters. All my aunties, all my cousins, if they ever watch this, sorry, but like you're all big eaters and you're all high BMIs.
You got to go the day.
High BMIs.
High BMIs. And that's normal to go and sink pints and eat big meals, doner kebabs, folded doner from Runcorn, absolutely fantastic meal. But
That sounds good.
yeah, it's very good. But seeing a different perspective from other people. So when I used him as a metric, or our clients could use us as that reference point of what we're saying is the right way to do it and whatnot. It only takes one person to change that course. That was for me was a big thing.
Yeah.
And then going to the doctors, getting your BMI testing.
That too.
Damn, I got
Yeah.
a high BMI, man. I gotta take that down.
I just want to come back to snacking and actually get it quite realistic for clients, for people through Christmas. Let's face it, people are going to snack. And how do you put a strategy in place whereby it's not gluttony, it's actual enjoyment? Because let's face it, you have this box of celebration that we keep harping on about. It gets to a point where you might be 10 chocolates in. That's not enjoyment anymore, because that sensation's still the same. That taste is still the same. At what point, how do you strategize it?
Yeah, I mean,
we talk about this for months, didn't we?
yeah, something that Nathan said to me that always stuck with me was how do you get the most from the least? So, to really start to dig into, whether that thing is chocolate for you or alcohol or ice cream, whatever it is, like, is it truly the chocolate that you're enjoying after that 10th one, or is it just the fact that everyone else around you is eating that chocolate? Or with drinking, I think this is a huge example for a lot of people, where alcohol is that social lubricant, and we think that having that third, fourth, fifth, sixth drink is really bringing us the enjoyment, but it's actually the dialogue, it's the busting balls, it's the banter, and that's actually the thing that I'm actually enjoying, but somehow I'm equating drinking that fourth and fifth and sixth drink, other than if you're Declan, then you might actually enjoy that. But
It's the age when it kicks in.
That's actually probably the point. Is like there is a barometer of enjoyment from food, from the actual food itself, and there's a barometer of enjoyment of the psychology of food that isn't ever present until you get the feedback that you're about to puke. There's a taste profile on everything within our mouth. Things taste the same when you eat it over and over again in successive bites. So there's like a no way that at the start of a Pringle tub and the end of the Pringle tub it gets progressively better. It doesn't happen like that.
Unless the flavours change.
Unless the flavours change, and then that's you fucking up the game. But if you go through a tub of Pringles or celebrations or whatnot, there will be a peak of enjoyment from the taste, and then after that certain point, there will be no benefit physically or taste-wise, because your mouth is going to be covered in chocolate, which means that you don't actually get the flavours all the way through. You just get the different crunch profiles.
Tooth decay.
Yeah, tooth decay. Yeah, you got no teeth.
Yeah.
So there's always a ceiling. There's a bell curve on food, and there's a bell curve on alcohol. You got those people who can go out for 7 drinks, and on the 8th one, you don't see them for 2 days. Or you got those people that go over 3 drinks, and then that's really when they start speaking in a social environment because they're a bit more like social lubricated.
minimal effective dose.
Yeah, and what the goal is around celebrations or any type of food is to find your minimum effective dose, not what you're used to, which is your maximal enjoyment capacity, and with no care for the ramifications of that. I like what I did on my stories the other day, what I do at my parents' house, because equally that's still the hardest place for me to ever navigate food, because it's always old habits coming back around. I use the small bowl rule, new one, THC, trademark that because everyone's going to use that. Is you get a little bowl, because if you go handfuls, you don't remember how many handfuls. Fucked, you're gone. Like handfuls of this, handful of that. You going based off then enjoyment. So you get a bowl, and you put the things that you enjoy into the bowl, of like a quantity enough to sufficiently do the bowl, not the trough, and then you take that bowl out of the kitchen and you go and eat that somewhere else, and that way you've got a bowl of food that you're not endlessly plugging into. You've chosen your favourite stuff, and then that signifies the end of that snack, and then you wait for that meal. That's what I had to do at home, because my cupboards are literally biscuit, sweets. ice cream in the freezer, chocolate in the freezer, whatever it is. And there's so many to choose from that I'd end up just going ice cream. Then I'd stand there, eat the ice cream, then I'd go back to the biscuits, and then go again.
Savoury
and then
sweet,
else.
savoury sweet.
Yeah, literally. And that's how you that's how you hack you. We're not going to teach them that. We can't teach them the secrets of big eating.
High BMIs.
High BMI, yeah. So you've just got to have a measurement of it, and then work with that, because you can't have everything without there being a ramification. I like the bowl.
Got to be compromised.
Always.
It's awareness as well, right? Like I think there's just such a lack of awareness of like the food, the values of the food going in. Like even from the simple stuff like nuts and dates or things of that nature. Whereas again, it's all kind of healthy fats and healthy foods. But it's like the stuff which is super palatable, you can consume it, and when you actually show someone, the portion size relative to the calorie quantities, like that's kind of when it hits home a little bit in terms of how much they really consume and why, for example, they might not be losing weight. So I think like obviously the portion control factor is huge, but actually education around the sheer calorie density of the foods that they're consuming.
Yeah, go and weigh 30 grams of gatia and go and weigh 30 grams of chevro, and then go and be disappointed. That's 200 calories.
Yeah.
Those
Like
snacks on the
granola,
street.
man.
Are those
Disgusting, that stuff.
Yeah, it's depressing, and it's rocket fuel. And I understand you want more, but everybody. I want more money. Doesn't happen.